Welcome back to another episode of Just Say It. I am Chase Davis, one of the pastors at the Well Church in Boulder, and I'm joined by Pastor Matt Patrick. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks for having me, Chase.
Yeah,
happy to be on your show.
Glad you can make it today. If you're new here, this is like our 50th episode. We've done a lot.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I looked on here. Let's see. On the podcast.
Wow. We need like confetti. We need to celebrate.
Yeah, this will be number 50.
Whoa.
We started recording at an undisclosed location in Boulder, and that was fun, and it was cold, and now we're in a new location in our building, 300 South Broadway, and it's still cold, and it feels like a dungeon. But we're here.
Oh, the Rayback.
Yeah, that place.
Huh.
And we just switched to 2 services, 9 and 10:45. So if you haven't been to church in a while, which I don't know why that would be for you, whatever reasons you come up with, the snow's not that good, you couldn't be skiing.
Yes.
Join us at 9 or 10:45 Sunday mornings. A couple of announcements right out of the gate, which I forgot to preview before we got on the air. So I'm going to try to recall them from 2 days ago.
Okay.
One was Theology on Tap.
There you go.
Coming up Thursday, this Thursday as this podcast is getting released, which is March 5th. March 5th, Theology on Tap. I will be talking about my book, Offensive Christianity, and you should come to that. It'll be a great time. The next is Burn the Ships. Burn the Ships is coming up July 31st
Yay.
to August 1st, 2nd. We're kind of extending it to the second Sunday, the 2nd, so you can stick around for church. It'll be a great time. We've got 2 speakers penciled in, booked, Joe Rigney and Stephen Wolfe. So Stephen Wolfe is the author of The Case for Christian Nationalism. Joe Rigney is the author of The Sin of Empathy and Leadership and Emotional Sabotage. It'll be great to have those guys out. Really looking forward to it. I'm sure Matt and I will be speaking as well. We'll see if we can throw another guy in the ring to have a great time. So I really hope you enjoyed last year. If you didn't come last year, we had a great time. You can go find all the talks on this podcast feed. But make sure you head over to our website for Burn the Ships, boulderwell.org/burntheships. Register today for a discounted ticket rate. Those are going to go up in about a couple months, so you're going to want to get a ticket early because we anticipate it selling out. It'll be here in Boulder at our church building.
I think we're going to have Jordan Robert Kirk back, too.
Oh, great.
I'm hoping.
That'd be great.
Have the concert again, which if you were here last year, I loved all the talks, but the country concert, that was my favorite part.
It's very good. Yeah, very fun with him.
Very fun.
Well, let's start. We're going to talk today about immigration, all things immigration, a little bit of State of the Union. So we did doctrine last week, doing some culture and politics this week. Before we do that, let's go into our opening segment. What did you mean by that tweet? And so let's start with Matt. You can go first this week. You can find one of mine.
Okay, yeah, I'm good. I found one that kind of fits with what we're talking about today.
Great.
So you start out, like you did a bold move. You retweeted yourself.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then made another tweet, a quote retweet.
I quote myself, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And your quote retweet was, "One of the most fundamental duties of any father is to protect the interests of his own family over those of others."
Yes.
You did that in a retweet of, "One of the most fundamental duties of any magistrate is to protect the interests of his own people over those of foreigners." So, what did you mean by that tweet?
So, I mean, we're going to get into this content. So,
I know.
The State of the Union, yeah, it's clever. The State of the Union, Trump was shrewd, clever, funny, and he at one point said, like he started it with something to the effect of, "Stand up if you agree with what I'm about to say." And he said, "Your duty as in politics or in government is to protect the interest of American citizens first, not illegal immigrants," right? And of course, one side stood up and the other side sat down and heckled him and all this. And that statement on its face, whether, the whole State of the Union, we'll talk about it, it's a show. Mm-hmm. But it was revealing and clever on his part strategically. But also, like, that on its face is a very true statement. And so I wanted to say the same statement because, of course, this is what Christians believe too. This is what we believe as Christians, that whatever country you live in, your government as a job, that's why they're there, to protect your interests, not the interests of the entire world at all times, or especially the interest, like, preferring foreigners over their own people. And it's, I'm playing off, I don't use it very much, the concentric circles, the Kuiper kind of paradigm, the family, home, church, and state, kind of 3 spheres is what they call them. And so that's why I was having some fun with that. So that's why I tweeted that out.
Fair enough. We'll talk more about it in the episode, but
great.
That is a good setup.
Yeah, that's great. Let's go to Matt's. some of these are just GIFs or GIFs, I guess, if, they claim to be learned when they say this. It's like Augustine and Augustine.
Yes.
Yeah, GIF and GIF. So you tweeted out, I'm assuming this was after the hockey game.
Okay.
Real leaders take shots.
Shots.
All caps.
Not alcohol.
Not alcohol.
They might.
More attempts equals more compounding wins. Stats don't lie. Volume exponentially grows victories. You can't score if you never shoot. Overselecting kills momentum. Paralyzes teams and orgs. 0 shots equals guaranteed loss. Many shots you might lose, but not forever. Elite shot takers miss, then sharpen their aim for the next one. Fire more, learn fast, and dominate. So tell me more about this.
Yeah, I was really bummed because I actually really enjoyed that tweet, and it got 0 traction.
Oh, I see that here. There you go.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, friend. Meanwhile, I post dumb things, and I went into the millions of...
That's
and I'm
true.
Like,
you went viral a couple of times in the last few weeks.
yeah,
That was
I
funny.
made fun of coffee shops, and I just said, hear me out. A coffee shop men don't hate going to, and I think I'm at like 1.5 million views on that.
It's wild.
And then I typed that, which I thought was well written, and
Nothing.
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 I don't understand the internet.
I think right now it's at 73 views.
Yes. 1.5 million versus 73.
Elon gives and Elon takes away.
Yeah, so that was after the Olympics, but I started like nerding out on AI while I was there, and I was just curious about hockey teams. And one of the things that you see is that actually like putting a massive amount of shots on goal is a strategy. And it tends to work in hockey. Like, you got to do it. It did not work for the Canadians.
No,
They
it
had
did
a
not.
lot of shots.
They had a lot of shots.
And so like that kind of got my brain going. I was like, well, that didn't work for them. Like, they put a lot of shots on goal. You might argue that their shots weren't as quality as the United States. I'm not a hockey professional, so I can't really speak to that. But it just got me thinking about a lot of, particularly young men I talk to, who want to start a business or do something. There's a lot of hesitancy out there. A lot of people are like, man, I don't know how things are going to go. Am I going to have the right amount of capital? Am I going to be able to do these kinds of things? And I see a lot of guys actually just not taking enough shots. Like, you just kind of have to get out there and go for it and just let it rip every once in a while. And what I noticed, and I've been blessed to hang around with some really good like people in the marketplace. And one of the things that I notice is that they're kind of just willing to take a shot on things,
Yep.
that they're willing, that they're not dumb about it, right? They're not like, in hockey, you wouldn't just shoot from the, like, beyond the blue line, for example, because
Right.
that's not going to go in.
I don't even know what the blue line is.
Oh, that's like the offsides line. You have
Got
to
it.
go back, right?
Yeah.
And so, but you like just say half court,
Oh, okay.
right?
Yeah.
Like, you're not just, in basketball, you're not just taking like half court shots
Yeah,
all
okay,
the time,
got it.
right?
Yeah.
But like, you always hear it in basketball, shooters shoot, right? Like, you can't make a shot you don't shoot, right?
Right, yeah.
And so I was just thinking of it through that lens, and I was like, man, I think we need a lot more people out there, particularly Christians out there, taking shots, like going for it. And,
Yep.
and it's funny because I think it's actually the best way you learn as a leader is by taking a shot and missing.
Sure.
And it's fine. And the best shooters, when you really nerd out and study on it, is they are taking mental inventory. I watched an interview with a hockey player where like he could recall all of his missed shots from the game and what went wrong and how to correct and how to fix. And so it's like, it's not like you're just taking blind shots. You're taking inventory of the shots. So when you do miss, what went wrong? When you do score, what happened? And that's how people grow. And I think a lot of times people are paralyzed by inactivity.
Yep.
So
That's great.
yeah.
Wonderful advice.
Yeah.
Well, today, let's start with State of the Union thoughts.
Yeah.
I have many, and, they could go all over the place, but do you want to start us off with any reflections, thoughts from the State of the Union, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, it was long, but I didn't mind it. Like, I think one thing, whether you like Trump or not, I'm assuming most people listening to this, unless they're just trying to find content to harm us.
Yes.
Most people like Trump, but I think one thing you have to admit is the man understands entertainment.
Yeah, he does.
He understands media. He understands how lighting works and cameras and where things are going to be. He has an innate understanding of that, and I think a lot of people actually underestimate the power of that.
Yeah.
If you go back, I was thinking back, and because I think what was it, the first televised debate
yeah.
was Kennedy and
I always forget his name. That
Yeah,
that proves it.
that proves it. And he just like mopped the floor
Yep.
with him because he understood how to do that. Reagan was great at that. He was an actor.
Yes.
Right? Like
Yeah.
he understood that. So I was watching it and I had a lot of thoughts. I knew what Trump was going to say.
Sure.
For the most part. So there wasn't anything too shocking
Yeah.
in there for me. But I was really intrigued to watch him do his kind of thing and be able to hold people, like as a preacher, to hold people's attention for 2 hours is a feat.
Yeah.
And I watched it, and my kids watched it, and my kids were intrigued as we watched it, which was interesting, and so I found that really interesting. We'll get into the immigration stuff. That was obviously a big point, and it's just fascinating to me that I'm not assuming that the Republicans would be better if there was a Democrat president in the sense of standing or not standing. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know what they would do.
Right.
But let's just say, as a nation, if there is something good that is even done from somebody you perceive to be your opposition,
Right.
I think there's something kind of scary in there that you can't celebrate that.
Correct. Yeah, and for me, I mean, Al Mohler has long been a huge fan of the State of the Union, and I've long been a huge, not disrespecter, but I view it as a dog and pony show.
Yeah, we've talked about this. I like the pomp. And
you like the pomp and circumstance, and I think it's all just theater. And so I've learned to just watch it as it is what it is. This is a spectacle of sorts. I wish it was more, not dignified. I wish I didn't perceive it that way. Maybe my mind is still too colored by the Colbert Report or something like this.
Yeah.
I'm very cynical, but I thought it was good. I mean, I love seeing the people he highlighted for celebration. The two guys that got a Medal of Honor. I mean, it was amazing, especially the older man, 100 years old.
Oh.
I should have notes so I can remember these names. Very great men. He shot down like 3 communist aircraft into the Korean War. This is awesome. This is American, and so very inspired by that. And then he highlighted the victim's mother of that train subway stabbing out in North Carolina.
Yep.
And the Democrats wouldn't stand for the mother that's suffering. And that's one of the takeaways that I thought was really helpful. If people have listened to our podcast, we've talked about this whole conversation on empathy. It's become very left-coded that they're the ones that actually care about people. And it's highly ironic that the tribe, the team that claims empathy is like they're the caring people can't even stand or care for a grieving mother.
Yeah.
And so it showed me even more verification of kind of the thesis of Rigney's work and many others' work, Allie Beth Stuckey. But that was great. And then obviously, he's going to talk about a lot of stuff. I think he missed when he mentioned IVF. I don't know why.
Yeah.
That for many Republicans seems to be and we need to do a whole podcast episode. So if you're like, why is that bad? We do need to provide more educational content on IVF. A lot of Christians just aren't educated on the kind of the Christian ethical stance on IVF. But he did mention it. I view that as not a positive. But like you said, immigration was a big deal that he wanted to highlight. Now, he was very measured, and there's a lot of different strategies I suppose you could take in a kind of State of the Union type thing. Mm-hmm. You could just highlight policy, you could go down the list of policies. And he started out doing that, but it quickly turned into let's highlight how bad the Democrats are, which go for it. We live in Colorado. We know this. They're terrible as politicians, and the things they're trying to push right now, they're trying to push legalized prostitution. They're still trying to take kids away from parents. I mean, it's just all down the board. Their policies are just bad, taking away Second Amendment rights. So I appreciated that he did that. A lot of people thought it was grievance politics. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, man. He's highlighting the antithesis. He's really showing the American people, this is who these people are. And it was a really bad look, I think, for the Democrats to be out there heckling. I saw a picture, I don't know if it was AI or not, from the back of one of the Congress women, Tlaib, I think is her name. She gave the middle finger to the president at some point. This is not, appropriate behavior. I would hope that a Republican wouldn't do that.
Well, to add on to that,
yeah.
Really fascinating. I believe it was during the Obama administration. He was speaking at the State of the Union, and a Republican stood up and famously yelled, "Liar."
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're not talking that long ago.
Right.
And it was the biggest outrage everywhere
Yeah.
that anybody would stand up in the State of the Union
And do that.
and do that. And that was done by a Republican.
Yep.
And I don't think it's good.
Right.
Like, I don't think that that's what you do in that venue.
Right.
Because that's, you're doing that for show.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think it's interesting to think that we've gone from that happening not that long ago. And it seemed like, I remember it distinctly, it seemed like pretty much everybody was kind of like ashamed of him doing that. I don't remember who it was.
Right, yeah.
And it was kind of like, that's not good.
That's not appropriate, yeah.
You don't do that in this thing. That's not how we act as a people. And I think that's what bothers me, is how does a people act? And we are to look to our leaders. I would love my children to be able to look to elected officials, even people that I disagree with, and go, they can at least respect the system, and that we live in a nation that, whether they like it or not, this man was voted into that position, and there is a reverence, in a sense, that is given for that, even if you disagree. Now, you can play a lot with that.
Totally.
You can get in trouble with that really quick. I
Yeah.
understand that, but I think there's certain situations that as a culture and society that need to be upheld to keep it as a civil society.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and a lot of that was lacking.
It was, yeah. So overall, I thought it was great. I mean, the approval, the polling, whatever you want to call it, I think 65% thought it was great, 35% thought it was bad, which is great. I don't think that Trump has been polling well overall nationally. I mean, better than you might think, but not as good as that. And then the Democrat response was, they offered some kind of alternative show that people could watch. I mean, that was a joke, man. Like, they had people
Blow up frogs.
Yeah, blow up frogs on the stage. A guy dressed in some kind of giraffe or tiger costume.
Yeah, it's weird.
Very, very strange. They had Abigail Spanberger from Virginia give the response. And she did what you would expect at this point, and this is what I predicted, not in our previous episode, but a while ago, is like, if the immigration issue is going to be highlighted as a big deal, expect this narrative. The narrative is going to be, children and women are being harmed. They're being taken away. They're going to show pictures of people crying. They're going to show how, like one congressperson, whoever it was, before the State of the Union even talked about, held up a sign like, this administration, the state of our union it's traumatizing our children, right? And so they're playing off the empathy card, right, that you should care, all while themselves being non-empathetic or sympathetic, whatever you want to call it. And so it does bring up the issue of immigration, which we haven't addressed on the podcast, and I'm really excited to talk about it because it is a big deal, and there's lots that we can say on it, and a lot of evangelicals have not thought biblically, politically, culturally about these matters, and they've been fed a lot. Like, the evangelical immigration table is a total leftist psyop that's been brought into local churches to educate Christians on basically an open border. So you taught Men's Advance a month ago on immigration, so why don't you kick us off on that?
Yeah, I'm going to give you my thesis of what I think. I affirm this, and I think it might be a good jumping off point, and like you can kind of respond to this, and I think it might be a good way for us to go. And so here's what I said. Here's my thesis. God ordains the civil magistrate to uphold justice, including borders, while the church practices mercy. Confusing the two produces injustice. So that's kind of where I was starting from. And if I wanted to kind of give it like something a little more spicy, is that we are told we have two options: open borders, compassion, or hard-hearted cruelty.
Right.
Like that's kind of what we're given as an option.
Yeah, that's what we're told are the options. And what we're trying to say is that's not true.
Yes.
Right, that's not true. The first place I would start would be kind of the order of loves. I don't think we've addressed that on the podcast, but J.D. Vance brought it into kind of the mainstream last year. And it doesn't just come from Catholic theology, it comes from Protestant theology in the Bible, that we have a duty and an obligation to those people that we're in charge of, that we're bound to in a greater degree necessarily than those we're not bound to. Does that mean we should punish or be evil to those people? No, that's not what the Bible teaches. But it does mean, like, we have ourselves for the Lord. We should be reconciled before the Lord through the blood of Jesus Christ. And then we have our family. We have certain laws that apply to our family and how men and women, husbands and wives, are to behave, our children, So that's a domain. Then we have our people that we belong to. We're in Boulder County, we're in Colorado, and we're in the United States. And those are loves that we have. Those come with certain duties and loyalties that we should have to those people. And then outside of that, that's the order. And then we should work on the rest, if and when we can, to then love others. And unfortunately, for most of kind of the liberal mind, it's totally inverted, right? It's kind of a love of the foreigner first. And if you don't love the foreigner first, you're not compassionate, you're hard-hearted, you're lacking empathy. And then basically, I would say they don't even love themselves. They commit heinous acts on their own body and encourage other people to do so through abortion and through transgenderism and this kind of stuff. So it's just totally flipped. The order is totally flipped, and it's a perversion of how God made the world. So that's where I would probably start. Yeah, no, I mean, it is an inversion, and it's interesting. It gets into a bit of another topic is like, it was funny when I was teaching Men's Advance and we were talking about this, I was just kind of reflecting on it, and I was a public school kid growing up, and I was taught, and I actually ended up believing for many years, that to say I am an American, a United States citizen, and I have a people was wrong. Or like that I had some sort of identity. Okay. Right? Yeah. In that. And so not to get into all of that, but just thinking about what we were trying to do there was always this idea that from the time we were kids, that to be an American was just this very generic thing. Like there was no like cultural things. Like as a matter of fact, the more outside cultural infusion you could throw into it, the better. Right. Right. Now that speaks to immigration. If that's really your thinking, then you can make a case for open borders. Right. You can make a case for, well, we should just let more people in because, and then that goes back to, well, why? Well, it's because America's rotten at the core. Right. Yeah. It's not even good. Right. Like, and so therefore, we should just bring in other cultures because if it's another culture, it's got to be better than our culture. Right. And I remember in high school even, and this was a Christian high school, like they would often talk about this minority demographic change that is coming. And they would highlight how particularly white Americans are going to become a minority in America. And as a young kid, you're just kind of like, whatever, teacher. But they always had kind of a grin on their face. And I found that, looking back, very odd. Like, why are they, why they always viewed it as a good thing, right? Yeah. And we're not here to talk about that topic necessarily, but it's tangentially related, in fact, deeply related. But yeah, so I want to mention some Bible verses, but what else? I thought it'd be good. Here, I'll mention a few. Here's my takeaway from conversations I've had with people, as I've had conversations around particularly Christians, a misunderstanding of immigration, okay? And the main kind of disconnect, I guess you could say, is a lack of understanding of the role of the state and the role of the church in these sorts of things. And so Romans 13, 1 through 7, I'm not going to read but it basically goes, the magistrate is God's servant, and it bears the sword, an avenger against wrongdoers. And then you have 1 Peter 2, 13 through 14, the government is there, or the magistrate, to punish evil and praise good. Mm-hmm. That's kind of its role. And so I think it's important for people to understand that the state is not the church. It's not tasked with being nice. I think that's what a lot of people, that's where they get hung up. It's actually tasked primarily with what? Justice and order. Yep. And so when a government, like a great example of this, okay, the best example I can think of this playing out, I can think of, was actually at Charlie Kirk's memorial service, right? There, you saw Erica Kirk come out, whatever you think of her now, all sorts of interesting things there. But sure. But she comes out and she forgives. Mm-hmm. She claims to forgive the murderer, right? And then Trump comes out, and what does he do? And he goes, "Yeah, I'm not going to do that." Right.
right? And
Yeah.
and people are like, oh my gosh, he's so mean.
Right.
And I was like, no, that's actually a good thing. This is like the role of the state. They're not supposed to be that. That they are the avenger, if you will,
Right.
of the people. They are to bring about justice and good.
Yeah, and that gets into an important point. There's a corollary that can be helpful for people. So in the church, we, like just in the home, husbands and wives are to live in harmony and love one another, and then they have different duties within the home. The husband should protect and provide. Expand that out. The church, the elders of a church, are to protect and provide for their congregation. Protecting looks like church discipline, looks like fencing the table, looks like guarding who is admitted into membership, looks like protecting the baptistry, like who can get baptized, and we're guarding doctrine. And so there's a misconception over the spiritual aspect of our faith, the church aspect, as being like hyper nice all the time. And that's not even what we're called to be as Christians. We're called to be kind. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't prohibit us from enforcing boundaries or disciplinary action or excommunication, whatever it may be. And in a similar manner, you expand it out to the state. The state has certain duties, which you just read. And one of those duties is to protect the interests of the American people. And that is going to be characterized as mean today, whatever the policy is. Could the policy be overly harsh? You could say that, but these are debatable issues. And so people just have a weird, you even saw this there's two things I wanted to highlight. One, the leader of the pro-life movement, some lady named Kristen, tweeted out like to death penalty is an anti-pro-life, which is just nonsense. Mm-hmm. We see the death penalty in God's word. And of course, everyone like that would agree with her would say that's because the death penalty is mean, right? That capital punishment is mean. The other one, which gets us back on topic, is you also see boomer theologians and other people tweeting out verses that have been used to justify kind of an open borders, full-on illegal immigration approach about loving the sojourner.
Yeah.
Right? And this is shameful behavior on their part. A lot of these guys just need to let Twitter be its thing, and they need to go retire. But this is a common approach that they're going to pick a Bible verse out of context and use it to justify, basically anyone and everyone coming to America at any given time for whatever reason, and that's a good thing, and the Bible says it's good. So
yeah, so some verses on that.
Yep.
Right, because the sojourner thing, we have to talk about that because that's just bastardized, right? Like in Christian culture, it's like, oh, you're supposed to love the sojourner, and then the other one would be, love your neighbor as yourself.
Correct.
Right? Those are the two that get used. But Exodus 12:49, it basically talks about one law for native and sojourner, not right. Like there is a law that must be upheld by the sojourner to stay. Leviticus 19:33 through 34 is basically talking about love the sojourner within the covenant community's order.
Yep.
Like it gets into, there's an order there. It's not just open. It isn't just accepting of everything. It's actually very not accepting when you read it. It's like, no, you're going to do things this way if you're going to be here.
Right.
And then Acts 17:26 is God appointed nations and their boundaries.
Yep.
And so you can actually see these things play out. And so when people get into the sojourner thing, they don't think about this, that they're actually taking that out of the Bible, kicking and screaming out of context.
Yeah.
And they're trying to apply it as God's word does not apply that at all.
And if you read it in context in Leviticus 19,
Yeah.
It was very clear that these sojourners, the way we understand sojourner, like you said, it's been really twisted, and that people assume sojourner equals immigrant, and that's not what we're talking about here. The category in the Bible of sojourner is somebody who would come into a land for a temporary time. It'd be like a temporary visa you would get if you went to China or somewhere else. It's a temporary status that you get in a nation.
Yep.
And so while you were to treat them and love them and not do injustice to them, they were still expected to abide by the laws of the land. And so there's all in Leviticus. You can just go read it. This is where love your neighbor comes from when Jesus is teaching it as a summary of the second table of the law. He's going back to Leviticus. And so like Leviticus 19:33, when a stranger sojourns with you in your land, you shall do him no wrong. You shall treat the stranger who sojourns with you as the native among you, and you shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Of course, that's the one that the social justice people are going to want to be like, Yeah, see, you're being mean. It's like, first of all, you've misconstrued categories. Second of all, you haven't read the full text because God does expect them to abide by the laws. Third of all, the illegal immigrants who are here are getting more benefits than the American citizens. So it's not even like parity. It's not even like equal treatment under the law. It's they're getting free housing, free food. They're getting free jobs. Like this is a total mismatch of what the Bible teaches in terms of the application of principles from the law today. And it's shameful that Christians would do this. It reflects a biblical literacy that is so rampant in evangelicalism. And I sympathize with it because it's so widely propagated. I mean, major Christian organizations, from the Gospel Coalition to Crossway to whoever it may be, have put out literature and publications that would support a wrong interpretation of Scripture. And many Christians just kind of eat it up because they're like, well, John Piper wrote a lot of books that a lot of people, and I did too, I liked some of his books. But because these kind of trusted names that are older say these things, they go, well, who are you going to disagree with John Piper? And it's like, yeah, absolutely, I'm going to disagree with John Piper on this because he's wrong.
Yeah.
And that's not wrong for me to say. That's not like I'm not trying to make fun of the man. I'm not trying to do anything other than say it's wrong.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, it's just like so often what you see generally how it plays out is like that verse just posted, no context, nothing. And when it comes from pastors, that's really disappointing to me because I know what they're doing. They're playing a dangerous game.
Yep.
And they should know better.
Yep.
And so that's really disappointing to me. And well, I think one thing worth pointing out here that I think I don't really hear the kind of like Christians like us actually get to say that often, and I don't think there's many platforms to do it, is like we get viewed as very cold-hearted for these sorts of positions.
Right.
Right? But the interesting thing that I think is worth bringing up is this, is like, as far as illegal immigrant, like, I totally get it.
Sure.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, if I'm in a third world country,
right,
and then the funny thing is, a nation's like building up all this social welfare for me.
Yes.
It's almost like I'm being invited to come.
Correct.
And I'm looking at my family, and I'm going like, what am I going to do?
Right.
I'm probably taking advantage of that, man.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that entering a country illegally is right.
You can understand why, though.
But I can understand why. Like, we're not dumb. Like, we understand these things. And so it's like, we have to take that into account. Like, I get it, but we're actually building a system that is actually encouraging it more and more and more. And Christians, by misunderstanding these Bible verses, are kind of willingly allowing that to happen by their voting.
Yep.
And their actions and their tweets and whatever. You know what I mean? And it's kind of wild.
Yeah, it is. And we do need to parse out illegal immigration and immigration. Illegal immigration is criminal behavior. I mean, that's the bottom line. They keep wanting to reframe it. I mean, I always find it funny, and I find it funny when my sons hear the word alien to refer to them, because they're like from another planet. And I don't really care if that has bad connotations or not. It's just funny to me. But illegal immigrants have broken the law. They're here whether they've overstayed a visa or they've come across the border illegally, and they should be removed from the country. This is like, I mean, 25 years ago, this would have been like, no duh. Like Bill Clinton said the same thing.
Yeah.
This is non-controversial. And the fact that Christians would support that effort is like, yeah, because Christians like have a duty to support their nation, and we talked about ordered loves, and like we support law enforcement. Like none of this.
And that's the job of the government.
It's like, yeah, we like the government doing what they're supposed to do. Like I don't know why any of this is controversial to people. I mean, I know why, because the left has gone insane. But like it's very normal. The other issue is immigration itself. And all throughout Christian history, I wanted to highlight a couple of things. There's two things I wanted to highlight. One is the Bible explicitly talks about curses in Deuteronomy, Leviticus, elsewhere. And one of the curses on God's people is that they would be ruled by foreigners. Okay, this is a very interesting concept that's repeated many times in the Old Testament. The idea of foreigners coming and taking over a land and then ruling over a land that once belonged to another people is viewed as kind of a judgment on that people. And so in some ways today, there's a corollary there. I had a debate last year with somebody, and we were debating this topic, illegal immigration as a form of God's judgment against America, and the prior would be for the many sins that we've committed as Americans. Our nation is awash with the blood of infants, with the abortion industry, and illegal immigration is a type of judgment by God. I think there's a legitimate line of inquiry there, and the logic kind of makes sense to me. And this, again, this is not a novel interpretation of the Bible. This is actually a very Christian, historic interpretation of the Bible. Aquinas talked about this, not just with illegal immigration, but immigration, that nations should only permit so many immigrants to come in, not out of a hard-heartedness, not out of a lack of compassion, but actually a deep compassion for their own neighbor in their land.
Yes.
Right? And so Aquinas talked about this all throughout Christian history. You'll see people talk about this. I was talking with a couple of pastors and theologians this morning, and I just wanted to share a couple of quotes real quick from them on this topic. One guy said, "I think the most fruitful thing that pastors could do on illegal immigration is to recognize it as a curse and something that serves as a prompt to call for national repentance." I'm thinking of Alcuin's letter to Lindisfarne after the Vikings sacked it. I don't know the reference. the front end of a centuries-long pagan migration displacing and terrorizing the native Christian population. Alcuin wrote to the monastery at Lindisfarne, "Behold the church of St. Cuthbert spattered with the blood of the priest of God. Despoiled of all its ornaments, a place more venerable in Britain is given as prey to pagan peoples. When the pagans desecrated the sanctuaries of God and poured out the blood of the saints around the altar, laid waste to the house of our hope, trampled on the bodies of the saints in the temple like dung in the street. Consider carefully, brothers, and examine diligently, lest perchance this unaccustomed and unheard of evil was merited by some unheard of evil practice. I do not say that formerly there were no sins of fornication among the people, but from the days of King Alfwald, fornications, adulteries, and incest have poured over this land, so that these sins have been committed without any shame, and even against the handmaids dedicated to God. What may I say about avarice, robbery, violent judgments? Consider the dress, the way of wearing the hair, the luxurious habits of princes and people. Look at the trimming of your beard and hair, in which you have wished to resemble the pagans. Are you not menaced by terror of them whose fashion you wish to follow? Do not in drunkenness blot out the words of your prayers. Do not go after the luxuries of the flesh and worldly avarice, but continue steadfastly in the service of God and in the discipline of regular life." Why do I mention this? Because it's really common in Christian history to engage on these topics as pastors.
Yep.
To talk about this issue. Obviously, Europe is really dealing with a heavy immigrant population that's crippling many nations over there. And it's important for Christians to get their minds right, biblically and historically, on this topic and not be propagandized by the world that it's somehow wrong to have borders or wrong to deport people.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, that's a great point because one of our friends, I think, made a long tweet about it, but I can't remember who, so I'll just steal it for my own.
Sure.
But refer to it as narrative warfare.
Yeah.
How much of that is happening out there?
Yep.
You are being tricked. So many Christians, well-meaning Christians, and it goes back to the empathy thing. It kind of keeps going back to that. It's such a big deal, right? And what they're doing is they're losing any sort of the history of what you just talked about. That really what we're talking about is actually a very uniquely American thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's become actually I'd say Western thing now.
Right. Yeah.
That's what it's become. But it actually until very recently was very common to not just receive anybody and everybody into your nation.
Yeah.
That's not a weird thing.
No. It's very, very normal.
Well, let me ask you another question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how would a Christian handle the verse of loving your neighbor as yourself?
Right.
How are they doing that? I have my own thoughts on it.
Sure.
I've already taught this to our men, so I'll give you a chance.
Sure.
Maybe give them something a little different than what I said.
Mm-hmm.
But you hear that, you're not loving your neighbor as yourself.
If we deport illegal immigrants?
Yes.
Oh. So, yeah, I think about it in a variety of factors. One, we go back to the order of loves, the biblical instruction, kind of natural law, and we say, look, my neighbor, my American citizen neighbor is going to be harmed by giving away treasure and resources to people who have broken the law. So that's not good for my neighbor, right? Mm-hmm. If there is a person who has broken the law, of course, by which I mean illegal immigration, then that person should suffer the consequences of breaking the law. And that itself is loving my neighbor.
Yes.
Is enforcing the law is loving my neighbor, because if we don't enforce the law, it leads to widespread criminality and sin. And so we shouldn't use loving your neighbor as yourself as some kind of justification for lawlessness in our society. So it's very detrimental to the American people, and you can apply this to any nation, to have criminals, especially giving criminals benefits and driver's licenses and CDL licenses to do whatever they want in their country. And it hurts my neighbor to do that, to allow lawlessness.
Yeah. Yeah, the assumption there that most people are making is just anybody who happens to be near you is immediately your neighbor.
Right.
And I think the disconnect for so many people is we can practice Christian hospitality without tolerating lawlessness.
Correct.
Right? Like
Yeah.
that's all we're trying to do.
Yeah.
It's not complex.
Yeah.
It's going, I will practice Christian hospitality, kindness, happy to treat the sojourner as Scripture dictates, but also I want to do it as Scripture dictates.
Yep.
You know, not with some made-up thing. And you have to get into it because it's part of the thing. We have to see kind of the man behind the curtain that's pulling the levers and what's really going on here. I don't think anybody could be honest with themselves and go, well, why has like open borders and stuff been a thing? It's an attempt to kind of control an electorate and win elections and do things like that, right? Like, and like these things are real. And it's like people go, no, that's not true. I'm like, no, it's blatantly obvious,
Right?
Like that's what's being attempted to happen here.
Yep.
And so then you get into things like, well, now we're letting immigrants vote. Illegal immigrants vote. Let me say, like an immigrant who comes here and becomes a U.S. citizen, great, vote.
Yeah.
Right? Like, do your thing. Like, no problem. But, like, allowing that into, like, you see it with getting rid of voter ID.
Yep.
Which it's very funny that Mandami just now, to shovel the sidewalks required 2 forms of ID.
Yeah.
I thought that was racist.
It's more strict to shovel the sidewalks in New York than to vote. This is insane.
Yeah, we have lost our minds, right? And so I'm like, the hypocrisy, like, all you have to do is look at the hypocrisy that's there.
Sure.
Right? And, like, if I talk to any of my friends that are black and said, hey, man, I bet it's really hard for you to vote because you have to go get an ID, they'd probably want to fight me.
Yeah, totally. That's insulting.
They'd be like, that's really insulting. Who do you think I am? Like, yeah, but maybe you might need a...
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know what a computer is? It's like, this is like really mean.
Yeah, I mean, Gavin Newsom just had a great slip up on
They
that
did
too.
have that.
Like,
Yeah,
but like, I'm just like, it's an attempt to win elections, to push an agenda,
Right.
and to basically push a secular or a Marxist agenda down on society.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what's happening there.
No doubt. No doubt. Yeah, and that kind of a caveat, if we can actually bear to be nuanced on the program, this doesn't justify if there are cases of excessive force or 2 U.S. citizens losing their life at the hands of law enforcement officers. That we're not saying that's justified necessarily. We're saying that's tragic, and we should look into that and how that occurred. And if changes can be made to prevent the loss of life, so be it. But I do think that there has been, given that federal officials, when they're going into these areas to find criminals, many of whom are engaged in sexual crimes, that they're being impeded, right? You've seen many videos come out of federal detention centers where there's people rioting almost, blocking entrances. This is actually against federal law. And so I almost am like, if we're going to be consistent and not promote lawlessness, those people should be arrested. Like, those people should suffer. That's a crime according to our laws.
Yeah.
And those, I don't know, that's not to say they should be killed or anything like that. It's simply to say, just enforce the law. Like, and I realize that's complex and it's easy for me to say on a podcast, but of course, we more than any loss of life, that's not what we want. And we don't want vigilantism. We want the government to do its job. We don't want crimes to be committed. And we don't want criminals, illegal immigrants, to take advantage of our country and break the law and go on unimpeded. So I think these are just important, like, hopefully people can hear that. Like, that there is no one on that I'm listening to is going like, do whatever you want, get rid of all these people. No, we're just saying, look, you need to enforce the law. Yeah. And if that requires however many millions of people to be deported, then those people can be deported. Like, and
which, by the way, Obama deported more.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is...
which is wild.
It's
you know.
insane.
I think for the listener, what I would really want them to be able to think through and process on top of the biblical things that we talked about. Understanding the Bible right is what I want for people more than anything, because that's like the truth shall set you free. If you want freedom, that's where you're going to find it, right? Is through Scripture. But like to think of it a little bit in a more complex way is understanding, I kind of have the two thoughts here. One, the moral inversion that's happened. And so that means enforcement equals oppression and lawlessness equals virtue. Like, so there's a moral inversion that's happened. And so like, be aware of that. So when you see that, where it's like any sort of enforcement of the law is an oppression, like you should question that.
Yeah.
And anytime you see lawlessness being extolled as a virtue, question that.
Right.
Like, because that's inverted.
Right.
And then the second one is you've seen kind of just a category collapse culture, like an inability to have categories for things and understand things in categories. So like every enforcement action becomes attacking immigrants.
Right.
Everything. Right. And so it's like, and I think it's important for the listener here, like when we talk about this, I don't presume that ICE or law enforcement is going to be 100% perfect in their enforcement of these laws. There will be mistakes.
Yeah.
And I can also go, I don't want those mistakes.
Correct.
And I can also go, but we're dealing with human beings and things are going to happen.
Right.
You know, like, and and so like the outrage that's just crammed down your throat, you should be cautious with that.
Yeah.
Not numb to it.
I know.
Cautious with it.
And what's really difficult today with social media and many other outlets is a lot of times rumors get started. Some cases could be legitimate. You know, you'll see, I've heard of, people who are U.S. citizens get deported. I don't believe that's true, but if it was true, look into it. It's not a big deal. It's not like one mistake was made. Oh, guess we can't enforce the law ever again.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, like, that's a ludicrous, but that's the way propaganda works, is they're going to find one mistake. And I'm talking about like I heard of a case in Texas where a U.S. citizen was like unlawfully detained. It's like, okay, well, we should look into that and we should rectify that. That shouldn't happen. Mm-hmm. Moving on, that doesn't mean the whole program of enforcing law is bad.
Yeah. I would encourage Christians to use good logic.
Yeah.
Right. Like I've always said that I think every American should be required to take a basic logic course.
Yeah.
Before they can vote.
Yeah.
Because it's things like you don't apply this to your life, right? Like if your wife messes up one time, you don't go, it's all over.
It's all over. Marriage was a sham.
Yeah. Yeah. We can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So what else, Chase?
I think that's all I wanted to get off my chest on this topic.
Well, that's what we're here for.
Yeah. It's basically a therapy session, for me to share.
Yeah.
This episode brought to you by
Wendy's.
Yeah, and
Wendy's.
Diet Coke, the national drink.
Are we breaking the law by claiming that we have a sponsor?
No, I've heard other people do this. So
great. I'm going to start saying that we have sponsors.
If we are breaking the law, then other people are going down with us.
Great.
Yeah, so we'll be fine.
We'll have friends.
Yeah, I don't want to be I don't want to promote lawlessness on here. I do not believe I've broken the law.
I'm going to start saying churches that don't like us, this episode is brought to by them.
That's funny. That would be great. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in today. Sunday mornings, would love to see you there, 300 South Broadway. Go to our website, boulderwell.org, to find out more information. Don't forget about Theology on Tap coming up this Thursday at 7 p.m. And if you're listening to it after this Thursday, then you missed out. Go buy my book, OffensiveChristianityBook.com. And then coming up, Burn the Ships, July 31st to August 2nd. Go to boulderwell.org/burntheships. Register today to get a discounted ticket price. We also have group discounts on there, I believe. And if not, we'll figure it out. So register today, and we'll see you next time.